This video will finally settle the question for you whether something in the experiential realm can ever satisfy you. If you are still chasing objects, money, even relationships, if you look for anything as an experience to bring you happiness, I think this exploration that we are going to go through in this video will finally make it undoubtedly, even logically, clear that it cannot be the case that anything beyond your own true innermost self can ever truly satisfy you. In my personal journey, this was probably one of the most significant insights that set the course of my personal development through spiritual teachings, which put me on this path. And that is the insight which I'm now going to talk about. You could say it's the insight that the wheel of desire, chasing desires, fulfilling them, having temporary happiness, but somehow this underlying feeling that you cannot really put a name on remains. There is this kind of emptiness inside that no matter what you do, no matter what you get, which achievement, recognition, praise from others, even what we call love from others, somehow cannot fill this unanswered question, this void. And that is really what is the term stream entry, what that is about. It is the recognition that whatever we have been doing up to this point isn't able to really fulfill us and isn't going to fill that sense of, you could call, inner emptiness that could be filled, and this longing for filling this inner emptiness. And that is really something in your own personal journey. It will be a point that is very significant if you truly grasp that. And maybe this video will do it for you. So you may ask, why is it the case? It seems so intuitive and everybody's doing it. So we have this feeling inside and things seem to fill this desire. They seem to satisfy, at least temporarily, what we were longing for. And it seems like that's just our mode of being. That's how we live, right? It's just our natural thing to do stuff because of that desire, to fill that desire over and over again. And only through your conscious recognition that this is kind of a circle of never-ending pain, really, because it's just filling a void, a pain that is created in that circle itself. So you first create that feeling of something is missing, something I have to get, and we project that out onto something specific. But this behavior that you may be able to recognize now in many of the things you have done in your life, it is pointing to something much deeper. And this desire to fill something within you with an object, an experience, a feeling, a person, an achievement, a goal, even something not very tangible. You can have this desire to just become a better person, to work on yourself, to acquire some knowledge, to study something. So it doesn't really restrain this circle of desire, isn't restrained to real tangible, like we could say material objective things. So don't get hung up here if you say, oh, I don't have so many objective, physical, material desires. No, it extends to your whole motivational system, and to see how that is pointing to something much deeper, and how you can actually solve this puzzle that from that point of view seems to be insolvable. But if you go matter, it's completely obvious and solvable. What is that deeper aspect that I'm talking about, that this behavior of us is pointing to? Once you get a glimpse of your true nature as pure, empty, beautifully silent consciousness, like this consciousness that you yourself are is inherently blissful. It is just some experience beyond emotion. It's not this blissful inner tingly sensation, or a beautiful sight, or something that we feel towards another person. It is something much more refined than our usual human emotions. So this consciousness, this beingness, that is your true self, that is what this cycle of chasing desires is actually pointing to. It is the attempt of the illusory ego to reunite itself with its true being. It wants to transcend itself, and it tries to do that in the only way that it sees to be possible from its own point of view, from its own confused point of view. If a thing is illusory and has carved itself out of a whole, it seems for that part that what it needs to do is to find other parts that fit itself in order to feel more of the whole. But from that very strong yet illusory sense of being a part of the whole, it seems completely impossible that maybe what it is looking for is not an addition to itself, but rather the dissolution of its boundaries that were never there in the first place, but this erected sense of I am this part looking out at other parts, being in relationship to something else. And as long as this part hasn't recognized that its own true nature is the one thing that is the essence of every experience, it is the experienceness of experience. It is that quality of experience that makes it yours, that makes it alive. It is the I experience, and then everything you can imagine. It is not I experience something else, it's I experience, period. One process. And so that true aspect, that only true aspect of everything that exists, that is what the separated sense of self is longing for. But as long as it remains in that illusion that it is something separate, that it is something that has to go out into the world to get things, it can never achieve that, because it's from the start, from the first step it takes, it is already the wrong approach. So knowledge here is the first step. To acknowledge that it may have created its own walls, and that the only way in order to get what it truly wants, it has to let go of those walls. And then it may have a chance to start the process of recognizing and letting go of that illusion that itself is. And there is nothing that is to be feared here. From that perspective, it looks like, what will remain if I go? Is there any sense of clarity beyond what I know, beyond what I identify with? These are usually some of the concerns that come up when you say you have to dissolve. But that's the essence of an illusion. It has never existed, so therefore nothing of substance here has to go. Nothing has to be destroyed. Your true self is there right now for you, whether you recognize that or not. That true self just has forgotten its own true nature. And it's very obvious why that is the case once you see your true self, and also how that's such a strong tendency. But once you pull out the thorn, there is no pain anymore, and the tendency to get pulled back into the story of the small self gradually over time releases its power over this constricted sense of self, or loses its power to create that restricted sense of self, more accurately. Why is it impossible then to get happiness out of things? You may still have like this question, okay, why? I mean, cannot a part of the whole just be satisfied with the part, and maybe a few other parts that it has, can control, can perceive? Can it not just be satisfied with that? Why is there this longing in me to continuously chase more and somehow still not feel satisfied? Why is that the case? And here it gets logically a little bit difficult to follow, but stay with me for a moment and you may even intuitively grasp what I'm pointing to. See, everything you try to do in order to feel a little bit more happy and a little bit less pain, basically that's your mode of operation day to day. Everything you do in order to achieve that state where you feel happy and no pain. See, the objects you acquire for that, the objects you get into your life and the things or objects you avoid, but specifically the things, let's just call them experiences, that are being chased, upon them you place an impossible task. You give something that isn't even really there. You give it you burden it with the task to fill something with joy, happiness, that isn't even there. Quote unquote, the small self, this illusory sense of separation. So you try to get something out of things into something that isn't there. So this whole process cannot work. I know these, from my direct insight, from my understanding, it's very difficult to translate these into words, yet into a language that's not even my mother tongue, not even my primary language. So bear with me here. I'm trying really hard to find the best description of what I see, what I understand from that. So an experience, a circumstance, even things that seem very stationary, like a beautiful house, a beautiful wife, a beautiful car, maybe even your work to resolve the problems in the world, where you think, oh, if I could just work on that problem, society has this big problem. If I can just somehow find a fix for that and can help society or my community to solve this problem, then I might be happy. Then I would finally feel like at peace. That may not be like this strong of a notion in your mind, but it is what runs your experience day to day and creates this underlying sense of something isn't quite there yet. Somehow I don't feel quite 100% like where I would like to be. There somehow seems to be just something a little bit better around the corner, right? That's like the thing. It's not like majorly bad, like things are... I think you get the point, like what I'm trying to get at, this feeling, this inner emptiness. So you are trying to fill an illusory boundary with something an experience cannot even, where an experience cannot even reach. So you could also ask yourself, where should this joy from the experience that I have been chasing, from my fulfilled desires, where is this joy even contained? Where is it going? Like, where is this? If you could say, like, in yourself there is this bucket maybe, where just once it's filled up, then I'm satisfied. And maybe I have to get these 10 things right, and then... But look closely. There's nothing in your experience that could hold any joy, any happiness. Or really, there isn't even anything solid that can protect you from any bad experience. So you expect from experience to provide something that the whole structure cannot even allow for, that the whole structure doesn't allow for. And that becomes very obvious once you have seen through the illusory boundary between self and other. This idea that you can get something out of experience, this idea only holds true as long as you believe in the separation of yourself from the world. And once you have seen through that, or let's just say once you have seen the boundless nature, the borderless field that is awareness, then it becomes clear that one part of the whole can never fundamentally do something to another part, because there are no parts. There's only the whole. And so every part that is confused has this innate drive to merge back with its own true nature, that is the essence of the whole. You could also look at it like there is this infinite stream. You could look at it as an infinite stream of consciousness that has all the qualities that I previously mentioned. It's blissful, it's pure, it's empty, it's silent, it's just infinite clarity, infinite consciousness, infinite potential. And imagine that's yourself. Imagine how that would be. And then you restrict yourself unnecessarily to this very restricted sense of self. Like you would try to press this infinite stream through a tiny hole. How would that make this hole feel? Like it would feel like a huge pressure, a huge burden on this tiny hole, because it has to constantly hold back, because it doesn't allow itself, the small stream that goes through that hole, it doesn't allow that stream to be the infinite stream that it actually is. And so you can see by just this analogy that the restricted self is constantly under this pressure of looking for reunification with its infinite consciousness. Just by its very nature of how it is created. And so this longing to let go of a little bit of your sense of separation through unification with some experience points you in the right direction. It points to that innermost drive, that most pure desire you have for unification and recognition of your true self. But it is based upon false beliefs. It is based on the attempts of the small self, of the ego. And of course, if it's based on that, it operates by what it knows. But the motivation behind all of that is to recognize consciousness as itself. Another way you can discover the truth of what we have just contemplated is to look for any happiness in meditation that is a fundamental, tangible part of experience. So you go into a meditation and you observe what from your point of view looks like parts of your experience. For example, you could be someone who loves music, who is, if there wouldn't be the coronavirus, you would go to concerts every weekend. You would listen to music as often as possible, which in and of itself, from my own experience, is a beautiful experience. It's a beautiful expression of this human form. Just as an example, this may have become a sort of addiction for you. That's maybe something you really define yourself with, and you know, okay, just as an example, go into the experience of listening and see if there is something inside of the experience of listening that has something of fundamental happiness inside it. So look for what is the, and you can do that with every experience, whether that's a sensation, something you hear, something you see. So whatever your mode of perceiving pleasure from experience is, use that and inquire and look closely at that and see what is the essence of every experience. And once you arrive at that essence, you may find that alterations in that essence aren't necessary for it to be whole and blissful. And because what you will discover, and that's so amazing to discover, no matter how you approach it, through whatever experience, you can look at everything very closely, and you always arrive at your true self. You always arrive that you always see that the most fundamental aspect of everything is pure infinite consciousness. And once you have stripped away every layers, every labels, all separation, all things you want to attach to that experience, and see what underlies all of that, then it's just that. And that might free you from looking for inherent happiness in some alteration of that. Because no matter how you arrange on this level of experience the vibrations of consciousness, they can never reach consciousness and can never reach the inherent beauty, love, and just blissful existence of being aware, of being aware, of being aware of consciousness. So I hope this might give you some starting points to look for in your experience, in your meditation, or even go through that process again and again and think closely if what you just heard is true, matches your experience, and you can see the truth reflected in every moment of your life. Because you can validate that not in 10 years after doing some special technique or developing some crazy mental focus, and it's also nothing that you lost and you had in your childhood and now you cannot access it anymore. No, it's available beyond time. Time is created in it, so now is the only place that you will ever validate this truth of your true self for yourself.